at risk and you're looking at operations and you're looking at business, a large part of that will be the strategy that you're trying to adopt when you're trying to handle a change in market dynamics or change in a competitive landscape. Generally, you will believe that maybe at some point exiting a market is the right way to go. It could be because there's a price war. It could be because the market is flooded with products that you just can't compete with. But a lot of the times, what happens is you ignore the initial voice of the customer. It may be a simple change that a customer wants, which you as a team may not be willing to adopt, or you may not be willing to change your product. And again, it kind of tags to that innovation and leadership aspect. But on the face of it, I think any failure always stems from your knowledge of your product and your knowledge of your customer. As long as you have that, and you're able to adopt that into your strategy, the cash will come. But I think the problem is when we, as finance folk, I mean, especially when I was the CFO, you tend to overpower a lot of the discussion that's happening around productivity or innovation. And then you start talking about cost efficiencies, and the actual problem is that your cash flow your cash flow forecasting may not actually be strong enough, where you need to listen to the operations guys, to the sales guys, and understand exactly what your product can do and what it can't do. So I think, to be very simplistic, if you understand your product and you understand what your customer wants, you can literally find a way to navigate the failure. But if you're going to be stuck with, poor working capital, a very, very strong finance team that really over leverages what they feel is the right course of action, I think it's not a one size fits all. I mean, you have to be a little bit more collaborative with everybody within the team. So again, culture kicks in. So I think it's combination of culture, market, competition, product, customer. As long as you're able to do that, you can navigate failure. But I think I'll go back to one point Odiri mentioned, which was on early warning signs. So when you have a good risk management program, that again will help you navigate failure. But it's just when you don't listen to those risks that you tend to get stuck in the failure position.
Thank you so much. One striking point there is that product fit, customer need, because businesses are there to actually meet needs of customers. So if there is any misalignment in that meeting need, then there's definitely going to be a problem down the line. So it's good to actually reassess your product offering and check it against customer need to be sure that you're meeting need. Because if you're not, then that could be a recipe for failure. So thank you so much for all the contributions that we've had on that, what is corporate turnaround. So now we're going to move to the next session, which is about the skills that a turnaround manager requires. I'm sure most of you here are gearing up to take on turnaround assignments anytime it calls, anytime opportunity becomes available. So that's why we want to look at what the skills that are required to be able to achieve that part. So I'm going to launch another poll so that we can hear from you, the audience, before the discussant takes on this topic. So please, you should see a poll on your screen now. Feel free to engage it. It's for you. And we have just 1 minute, 30 seconds to complete this. So the question says, what are the skills you consider important for a turnaround manager? And you can choose as many options as you feel apply. But we want to be able to understand what you view as important skill before we dive into that conversation. So, fastest finger, please go ahead and submit your response if you haven't done so already. Yeah, I'm seeing participation going up. We're just at 50%, so I think some more people are still putting in their response. Hey, go on. Let's hear your view. What are the skills you consider important for a turnaround manager? So if you're going to, for instance, if you're a CEO, you're going to commit your company that requires turnaround to someone to lead it, what are those skills that you're going to watch out for? What is going to give you confidence that, yes, this person can do a good job? Let's hear what you think. And as soon as we hit 70, 75, we can try cutting. So we're already at approaching 2 minutes. So 20 more seconds and then we draw the cutting. If you haven't done so, please, let's hear your view. Let's hear your view on what you consider as important. And I'm sure the panelists has touched on a couple already. Okay, so I'm handing the poll now and I would share the results. So what are the skills you consider important for a turnaround manager? We have technical, we have financial, we have stakeholder management, we have strategy, we have teamwork. And the leading one is strategy. The leading one is strategy, followed by stakeholder management, okay? And then we have financial skill and teamwork pairing up the third position. And then technical skill is last. Okay, so this is information for our discussants. What do you think? This is what the audience have to say, but then you have to do justice to this session now. Skills required. So I'll stop sharing as we dive into discussing the skills required. Okay, so we've heard from the people. So I'm going to start with you, Odiri. Do you agree or do you not agree? What's your view on those responses?
It's an interesting response, really. And I think, yeah, they're all good qualities of a turnaround manager, or even though, you don't necessarily wear the title of a turnaround manager. There are people occupying roles where they're actually doing the job of a turnaround professional, but they probably are not called turnaround managers. So they're wondering, oh, but I do this, I do that. Sometimes you don't necessarily have to wear that title of a turnaround manager to be able to deliver on that. So those responses are really interesting. If I were to say what is the one key thing, one key attribute or for a turnaround manager, I would actually say leadership. Because it takes leadership to even build teamwork. It takes leadership to drive strategy. It takes leadership to deploy technical capability and create operational efficiency. So those skills are largely important. It takes one person to pull those things together, and that's a leader. We talked about the fact that, when a company is on the verge of insolvency and requires, a turnaround initiative, there are a lot of decisions that needs to be made, but are hard to be made. A lot of things that brought the company to that point maybe might require cost cutting. It takes a leader to be able to say, yes, we'll have to lay people off. We'll have to shut this particular unit or division just because we need to get back to a stable level. So leadership really, for me, is one of the key skills that is required to be able to create a turnaround change, because at that point in time, you're also managing crisis. Your ability to inspire confidence, your ability to communicate and rally people to even buy, buy into your vision and things like that. It takes a leader. So I would say, beyond the qualities that we have listed, which will be driven by one person who is that leader or that visionary leader that is able to create a clear vision for the company and inspire people to, to rally as a team, work as a team, drive strategic initiative, stakeholder engagement, create technical competencies to improve operational processes and efficiency. So leadership for me is the glue that ties together all, that everyone has identified. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for bringing us back to the roots, because everything rises and falls on the leader. So I think that's the glue that keeps every other thing in position. Thank you, Odiri, for sharing that. So I'll come to Sid. We've looked at, we're exploring what is required, the skills that is required of a turnaround manager, even if they're not bearing that name, or someone that is saddled with that responsibility. And it actually cuts across a lot. So in your experience, what are those skills that stand out that you want to share with us today?
I'm going to kind of steal a word that David used earlier, right at the beginning of the session, the webinar, which was resilience. I think in my experience on both the successful ones and the failed ones, the key difference there was having a resilient leader who had the humility to and the people skill to kind of meshed with technical. So I was actually very the finding of that poll was quite interesting. That technical skill came at the end, because I think for any leader, it's not, walking into an industry and trying to turn around a company without any prior knowledge or any technical skill is a challenge. But if you have the resilience, the humility, not only to manage your people, right? Because at the end of the day, even for the leader, a turnaround can't be about just a leader. It needs to be about the organization at large. So for a good leader to have the humility and the resilience to deal with the stakeholders and the suppliers and the customers and all of the critical components that you need to drive a good business model forward. I think if I had to put it in 2 words, a leader who has resilience and humility. I think for me that's critical.
Wow, resilience and humility. Thank you for that. So we'll come to David, and I'm going to tweak it a little, because I want to make it a bit more practical, especially given what happened at Dr. Martins. One of the qualities that stands out is its ability to make tough decisions, which you have shared earlier, because you just have to, someone needs to make that call. And Odiri also mentioned, sometimes you might need to fire, sometimes you might need to cut costs drastically, and a lot of people might not understand why you're taking that decision. So I know you took some very tough decisions while leading the team at Dr. Martins, as it were. Can you share those tough decisions that you had to take and how it really enhanced the ability of the company to turn around?
Well, yeah, I sack people for a living, right? So it's quite simple. Right? How tough is that? But I'm really interested in the words that are being used here, because Sid just a second ago talked about resilience, picking up on something that I said, but then in the same breath he talked about humility. And Odiri talked about communication skills. And I sometimes ask my students in class, tell me what's more important, to talk or to listen? And I know what they're going to say. They're all, I said, put your hands up, and a forest of hands goes up for those who think it's more important to listen than to talk. And I say, yeah, fine, you're right. But as the leader that Odiri has been telling us about, if you can't communicate your narrative, if you can't persuade people to go in the direction that you think that they should go, then you won't succeed. You spend your life talking, persuading, convincing, selling a narrative